Alrighty then, we are live.
Howdy,
Hello,
everyone.
everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Battle Tested History. And today we've got a good one.
Yes.
We are discussing occult practices of the Third Reich
Mm-hmm.
in the 1920s and 1930s.
Yeah.
And there is a gold mine
Oh, yeah.
of stuff to talk about.
We could do a month of shows on this.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
Mm.
But yes, if you're watching live and you want to comment, make sure there's a link at the top of the post in Asylum of Fear
Mm-hmm.
that will give you the opportunity to. Let me make sure. I'm trying to make sure it's yes. We are here. Yes. It will allow you to click on that, and then you give it permission to show your name. If you don't do that, we're just going to make fun of you and call you Mark Zuckerberg. And
Yes. Anonymous Facebook user. Yeah.
yes, some of Scott's NSA contacts possibly. Okay, so now the three movies that we chose, because that's the theme we decided on for this podcast, so we're kind of stuck with it. But there aren't any non-fiction movies about this stuff.
No.
There's some great documentaries
Mm-hmm.
and some really bad documentaries, hilariously so. But there's no Hollywood movies. But we threw three of them out there, which are The Devil's Rock, Iron Sky, The Coming Race,
Yes.
and Indiana Jones,
Raiders of the Lost
Ark, the first one. So, anyway, I'm supposed to could have done the third one too, but but yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with Iron Sky.
That is such a funny movie. I fell in love with the trailer when the Sarah Palin character goes into Middle Earth and she meets reptilian Hitler on a T-Rex named Blondie. I knew at that point the movie was going to be hilarious. So.
Oh yes, this is one of those movies that makes me very glad I live in a state where cannabis is legal.
Yeah.
But anyway, as absurd as that movie is, I don't think it's quite as absurd as the fact that the German High Command, we're talking Hitler, Himmler, Martin Bormann, Rudolf Hess,
they bought into this stuff.
Hermann Goering, they bought into it completely.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with the concept of the Vril? And since Scott wrote an entire novel with that at its center, why don't you tell us about the Vril, and we'll go from there.
The Vril Damen were a group of psychics. They had started to become involved in the 1920s. They were believing in the Aryan race, which we'll go into that later. And there was this popularity among the middle class in Germany in the from like at the end of from the end of the 1800s.
Right.
And it really became popular at the end of World War II in the 20s and 30s. And the Vril Damen were led by Maria Orsic, very beautiful, very attractive, very smart woman. Apparently, she had psychic abilities. And one day she fell over. She went into this trance. And when she woke up, she was absolutely convinced that she had been in communication with the Anunnaki, an alien race that had populated the earth millennium ago, and that they wanted to feed her information on extraterrestrial, and I'm not making any of this up, okay? I haven't been drinking yet. That they wanted to feed her information on how to construct extraterrestrial vehicles, UFOs, and time travel. And she was the only one that could communicate with them. And I mean, everything I've read, I did a lot of research because the Vril Damen play a major role in my book, Operation Majestic.
Mm-hmm.
They all believed this. This was not some like, oh, I'm going to pretend I'm a psychic. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
There it is.
It wasn't like, I'm going to do this and set myself up in New Orleans and get all the rubes to come in. They believe this. And this became the basis for that whole modern subculture, Nazi UFOs. Yes. The Hanabu 1, the Hanabu 2, the Hanabu 3, Die Glocke, Werner von Braun, apparently, he supposedly was passed all this information, which was why he was able to send rockets into space before anyone. But not only did these Maria Orsic and the others believe this, it became extremely a popular belief among, like Jeff said, Himmler and Hess were really into this. They believed in all of this occult stuff. Hitler bought the master race part of it because it backed up, it gave a claim to his, Aryans were superior. We come from Aryans. And, whereas Darwin when he said the survival of the fittest, it was like, okay, those animals that were best adapted to that environment, the fittest animals would survive. So many people in the early 20th century, survival of the fittest means we're fit. Everyone else dies.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the Germans.
No.
It was the French, the English, the Americans.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah, that survival of the fittest thing. But for Hitler, he didn't buy a lot of it, but he bought what backed up his racial policies.
Exactly.
I was watching the documentary tonight about, I think, Baumer. He was a Dutch archaeologist that found a cave in Bavaria that had Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal bones in it. And it showed that, these people were possibly using spearheads, but they were possibly using knives, but they were definitely using spearheads.
Right.
And he had discovered that at one point, all the Neanderthal stuff in the cave stopped, and then the Cro-Magnon started. And he came up, whether it was a wrong judgment or whether he was influenced by his own Nazi tendencies, that the Cro-Magnon decided, we're fit, we're more superior, we're smarter than the Neanderthal, let's kill them off to survive. And that Aryan myth became the basis for the Holocaust, the enslaving of Eastern Europe, the destruction of the Jews, the Gypsies.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it, euthanasia was very big, again, throughout, Western Europe and the United States. It was a real thing. And this may sound really twisted, but if you take euthanasia, the concept of euthanasia, which is that the mentally ill and the mentally retarded, the alcoholics, things of that nature, who are flawed human beings, should be sterilized so that they can't reproduce.
Right.
That basically is what euthanasia is. It wasn't about killing people per se.
No.
but it was restricting their ability to make more like themselves.
Yes, but the Nazis took it to the next extreme.
Well, yeah, yeah, I mean that's it. They took it to the logical extreme.
Mm-hmm.
If you accept that certain human beings are by their natures less than the rest of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
it isn't really that much of a leap to go from that concept to exterminating Jews.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely batshit insane,
Oh, yeah, it is.
but it's logical.
Yeah. And it's again that perversion of the survival of the fittest. Plus, they bought
Mm-hmm.
into this whole idea of the Aryans because
Mm-hmm.
it was Tacitus who was
Mm-hmm.
who was talking about the Roman invasion of what then was wilderness, but eventually would become Germany. And
Mm-hmm.
he talked about seeing tall, blonde hair, tall people with long blonde hair, blue eyes that were a superior race. And that just locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And, they started calling it Aryans. Oh, it's the Aryan race. I think Tacitus used the Aryan. The Aryans existed, but they were from Persia. They were from the Persia Tibet area. They were Middle Eastern and Asian.
Mm-hmm.
And which when I first started studying Nazi history, it was like, well, why are they sending these expeditions to Tibet? Because they were hoping to find there that pure blonde-haired, blue-eye Aryan, the Aryans that eventually made their way to Germany and then set up
Mm-hmm.
the greatest land that ever was.
Yeah, well, it also stemmed from the writings of Madame Blavatsky.
Oh God, yes,
That she was a real.
yeah.
But back around the turn of the century,
Mm-hmm.
she claimed to have traveled to Tibet
Right.
and received some kind of vision, some kind of, I don't know, there's some kind of mental mind meld
Yeah.
that told her about the various levels of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
which is where we get the concept of a with the Hyperborean, whatever the
Yeah.
yeah, which is the people from Atlantis,
Right. Right.
right? And the Aryan race was like right below that. They were the top echelon
Mm-hmm.
of humanity. And this is Madame Blavatsky
Yeah.
writing this crap.
Yeah. And
Um,
then the Atlantis sunk and went underground, and then that started the whole Middle Earth theory. That here they are.
yeah, here they are in Hollow Earth, and you know something
Coming up
magical
from the
happens, and
yeah. I mean the whole concept of Iron Sky, the last race, is the director is making huge fun of the fact that this was a concept. Atlantis, Middle Earth, um, the lizard aliens was part of the mythical culture
and
deep embedded in Nazi Germany.
and here's the best part: it's based on this, The Coming Grace.
Yeah.
It's a science fiction novel. It's a work of fiction, and it includes alien lizard overlords. And they actually took this shit seriously. The problem for me with stuff like this, like this, the supernatural and the UFOs and the Atlantis and all this other stuff, as fascinating as I find it, ultimately it's fringe.
Yeah.
It's not a main. These aren't mainstream concepts.
No. Yeah.
And the problem with the fringe is, Well, there's the old saying, the lunatic fringe. There's a reason that expression exists.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everybody who subscribes to these theories, stories, folklore, whatever you want to call it, are insane. Not by a long shot, but there are a significant number of people who do subscribe to these theories who are not quite right in the head.
And you got to really question your leaders if, like, 3 of the 5 top leaders really believe that this is true and believe that, that they were descended a super race, from Atlantis that's now buried underground, cavorting with lizard aliens.
I know. Well, they also bastardized some not fringe stuff. It was the work of Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yes. Yeah.
In his book, Thus Spake Zarathustra, he came up with the concept of the overman, which the Germans mistranslated as Superman.
Yeah.
And basically what it meant was this. Nietzsche basically held most of humanity in contempt. He thought they were beneath him. And the older I get, the more I think he may have been onto something. But that notwithstanding, his concept was that to separate yourself from the herd, from the mass, the great unwashed, you set yourself above them. You don't get caught up in the day-to-day scrabbling for things and for, just stuff. You make yourself better, and that puts you above them. Well, the Nazis, he was a German.
Yeah.
And he was a big fan of Wagner.
Yeah.
So the Nazis naturally said, well, Superman, there it is, right there. And it wasn't this fringe stuff. There were no alien lizard overlords.
Right.
It was a philosopher, a very respected philosopher at the time.
Yeah.
So Hitler, I think, was an opportunist more than anything else. He used the supernatural and things of that nature as a means to an end.
Yes.
Rather than the end unto itself.
Right.
Himmler, on the other hand, believed everything.
No. Oh, yeah. Well, Hitler was a great public figure. He knew the way he'd start a speech, which, if you've ever compared Hitler in his, the Ava Braun private videos, the way he'd start a speech and he'd stand there and he wouldn't say anything, and then he'd start, and then he'd build and build.
He'd start the quiet, even voice.
Yeah.
Like he's having a conversation with several 100,000 people at Nuremberg.
Yeah. And the other thing was, he was the first one to use aircraft to fly around and do
a campaign.
It was modern. It made them look hip. It made them look cool.
Yep.
And please, nobody yell at me for this comparison, but it was like when Clinton and Obama decided, wow, Twitter, these are a great new way to reach people. And they got a popularity among very smart people. This is the same thing Hitler did. He used aircraft. Oh, aircraft. We like aircraft. Aircraft is good. I'm bourgeois. I flew in one once. Jeff, like you said, he didn't believe all this bullshit. Oh, I can use this. I can use this alien race and throw it into a Wagnerian opera.
Mm-hmm.
and then use the Nietzsche Superman, and okay, let's go out and take over the world.
Yeah.
Himmler was obsessed with this. I
Oh,
mean,
shit, yeah.
he actually thought he was the reincarnation of, I think, an old 16th century witch hunter.
Yeah. Heinrich the First.
Yes.
That's the king.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, he was, I mean, the whole building of Wavelsburg Castle, much of which
Yeah, the Wavelsburg that's a very, very weird place. Very dark
still
place.
don't know.
But
Yeah, I mean, they still don't understand. Down in the basement, I got the opportunity to visit it. It's nice up on the level with all the windows, and it's all marble, and they got the Schwanzseite, the black sun. But then you go beneath, and there it is. It's embedded in the rock, and there's 12 stands around it. And nobody knows what it was for. Nobody knows. Yeah, it was never written, and if it was ever written down, it was destroyed. Nobody knows what the occult ritual was going to be at Wavelsburg.
those what's the word for them? They're like nooks.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
12 nooks
Yeah.
were called something of the honored dead.
Yeah, I don't remember what, but yeah.
Yeah, it had to do with the top echelon of the SS.
Yes. Yeah.
And once they were dead, that's where they were supposed to
Yeah.
be enshrined or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But it's the movies themselves that base themselves off this, like in a way, The Devil's Rock, which we watched.
Right.
Himmler was into this, but I've never recalled them ever, like in Devil's Rock, trying to raise a demon, to stop the Normandy invasion, or trying to use spectral imaging to figure out where the American aircraft carriers were.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I can't get over the alien
Yeah,
overlords. But
but the funny thing about Kamla and the funny thing about the Vril Damen is they disappeared at the end of the war. The last time the Vril Damen were ever seen or heard from again was February 45, and Kamla disappeared right after the end of the war. And, you've got all of these claims that, supposed photographs of, Nazi time machines and Nazi UFOs. So it feeds the conspiracy theory that they're just like, let's get out of here and go someplace else.
Yeah, there's even a theory that Maria Orsic ended up living down in Antarctica.
Yes.
Like a secret base down there.
Yes, and the underground base that I think it was Forrestal. No, who went down there in 47 for that
Bird.
big Arctic? Bird. Yes, for that big Arctic mission.
Yeah, that I've actually been to Antarctica. I spent 2 months down there. The picture that you sometimes see associated with me, laying in front of the bow of an icebreaker on the ice. That's Antarctica. And the claim is that the Nazis had a secret base there. We know that they had an expedition to Antarctica. We know that there were, I don't know, maybe some sub pens or something down there.
Yeah.
But the claim is that they built flying saucers and that they were down there and they were, in the hollow earth.
Right.
And that, they have a major city down there, and it's horseshit. Sorry, but it's horseshit. We had nautical charts of the entire coast of the continent of Antarctica. Not a single one of those was classified. None. Not at all. If any of that shit was real, it would have been. They made a big deal about Bird and Operation
High jump.
High Jump.
Yeah.
Them leaving early.
Yeah.
They thought it was a retreat because they were defeated. Well, no. They left early because the weather turned to shit. The 2 months we left early because the weather turned to shit.
So
It
you're
went
saying the
from-
Nazis have created weather control machines?
Exactly. Yeah, it went from, it was in the 50s most of the time I was there because it's the summer and
Really?
I'm right on the coast.
Huh.
Well, it went from like 53 to 20 in 4 hours. It was, we actually ended up having to take a bunch of Kiwis with us up to Australia because they couldn't get any planes in.
Wow.
That's Antarctica.
Yeah.
And his expedition at the time, Bird's expedition, I think 3 or 4 vessels and 1 submarine kept getting stuck in the ice. Getting stuck in the ice is bad.
Yes.
The ice will crush boats. I mean, we had 1 3/4 steel around the waterline. And getting stuck in the ice for a prolonged period would have still been dangerous.
Yeah.
Most ships didn't hit that much.
No.
And that's not going to help.
No. Well, I mean, the two things that fuel that conspiracy theory, at least the two that I hear most often, is that photograph that's never been explained away that shows a supposed circular portal in the side of a hill in the middle of Antarctica that's supposedly the door into the Nazi underworld. I know. And the one that, though I don't buy into it for the theory of a Nazi base in Antarctica, but I can't remember the name of the submarine. It was one of the German long haul submarines that left the Baltic right after right around the end of World War II, and then showed up several months later off the coast of either Brazil, I think it was Argentina, and they ditched it. But it had taken so much longer to get from the Baltic to Argentina that people were wondering. But if you ran the ship down to Antarctica, spent a couple of days there, and came back, it made sense. Now, I don't buy that, but I'm still curious. Why did that ship take so long to get there? What did they drop off and where?
Well, I mean, who knows? Who knows? They also make a big deal about this patch of green land.
Yes.
They found there in Antarctica, which is covered in ice. Well, Antarctica is volcanically active.
Right.
There are active volcanoes. So it's not a stretch to think that, well, there's geothermal activity going on. Geothermal activity will generally melt ice.
Yes.
Call me crazy. Yeah. And after the picture of the circular hole, Antarctica is a very, very wild place. It's a very dangerous place.
Inhospitable.
Inhospitable, yes. And the
especially
wind,
at Outpost 31.
Yes, especially at Outpost 31. But the wind can blow at like 150 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Wind with ice causes erosion. And because there's nothing, it's not abrasive, it's just a constant force, you end up with these kind of circular shapes.
Yeah.
Or different. They made a big deal about a pyramid they supposedly saw. Well, it's ice.
Yeah.
It's not granite. It's frozen water.
Yeah.
You know,
And the wind will blow it along the.
and create all sorts of bizarre shapes.
Yeah, look at the ice sculptures that are made naturally along the coast.
Yes. Oh yes.
Great Lakes. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So.
But where would us writers?
True. Where would we be if we didn't? Well, that's funny. You should bring that up.
Be without conspiracy.
Right, because I am gearing up toward starting on my supernatural thriller series.
I am so looking forward to that.
And
I've got to finish up Guardians of the Apocalypse first.
I should be done. What is today? The 25th. I should be done first week of August, and it's set for release on the 30th.
Good.
And then I'll be doing Stand Tall, which is the third and final book in the Pressure series.
Yes.
That should be out by the end of September. That's my goal.
If you guys, anybody out there who likes disaster books, not post-apocalypse, disaster books, get Jeff's Pressure series about the eruption of Yellowstone. That's what got me hooked on him.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Writing and researching that. But speaking of research, so there are books like this that I'm using. This isn't exactly a scholarly work.
Yeah.
But there's also Occult Roots of Nazism.
Yep, I've read that.
This one isn't exactly scholarly either. But oh, that's cool. The last backdrop I used is bleeding through. That's cool.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's called Emerald Cup Arc of Gold. The Spear of Destiny.
Yes.
And there are 3 books on Otto Rahn, who was essentially the inspiration or part of the inspiration for Indiana Jones. He's been called the Nazi Indiana Jones.
Yes.
And he was a bizarre cat. And his story is really interesting, really bizarre. Yeah. So much so I'm going to use him as a character.
Well, that's a great segue because of all Jeff and I were like, what should we talk about as historical movies about Nazi occultism? And we couldn't come up with any of them. The closest one we came up with was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
And that's because the Nazis were huge on getting these historical artifacts. And, the book, The Spear of Destiny, that was one of the first ones they wanted.
Yes.
When they the Anschluss of Austria, they sent in an SS unit to get it because according to the legend, whoever holds the Spear of Destiny will never be defeated in combat.
Right. Right, exactly. And Himmler, particularly, was also obsessed with the Holy Grail.
Yes.
Which is where Otto Rahn comes in.
Yes.
Otto Rahn was a poet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He wasn't an archaeologist. He wasn't a scholar. He became a member of the SS, which is a bizarre story. But he wasn't fire-breathing, I hate the Jews Nazi.
Yeah.
When Schliemann discovered Troy, he used the works of Homer to pinpoint its location. Otto Rahn believed that he could do the same for the Holy Grail by going through a book, or it's a series of long poems called Parsifal.
Yes.
From which it's kind of the wellspring out of which the King Arthur legend was born. And the whole search for the Holy Grail. So, I suppose technically, we should have watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But, I fucked in your general direction.
Some aquatic tart sticking his sword out of water is not a way to run a government.
That is such an awesome movie.
I love that movie. That movie never grows old.
No, it doesn't. What are you gonna do? Bleed on me? How about you?
I'm not dead yet. You'll be dead in a few minutes. My favorite scene in that whole movie, I know we're going down a rabbit hole, is when they try to prove she's a witch because witches burn, but so does wood. But you can't build a bridge out of her because you can also build a bridge out of stone. But since wood floats and so does a duck, if she weighs as much as a duck, she's a witch and she can be burned.
Perfect logic.
Who are you so wise in the ways of science?
And of course, there's the holy hand grenade of Antioch.
Oh my God. But, you know, it's funny. I used to have as a pet a white rabbit, like the killer rabbit. And I'm watching Monty Python one night, and she's sitting on the floor. And when the white rabbit comes out and attacks them, she turns and she's watching the television as if, oh, I wonder if I could do that.
Was she taking notes?
But, you know, and it's funny when you think of it, it's because all of this occult stuff that we've been talking about makes its way into the most stupid Monty Python in the whole. The Iron Sky movies, Devil's Rock, all of these. And we forget that, you know, Himmler was a firm believer in this. It helped drive his entire, not only the final solution, but it drove his, you know, the stealing of Nordic and Aryan-looking children from other countries, ripping them from their mothers. Yeah. You know, the pretty much the SS whorehouses where, you know, oh, you could, if you got knocked up by the SS, you can have your child here.
Yeah, the creation of the Aberware.
Yes.
The Aberware were, on one level, they were supposedly serious archaeologists.
Yeah.
Who were tasked with finding the origins of the Aryan race and proving that they were superior.
Yeah.
Which in itself is absurd.
Yeah.
Because Hitler was a big fan of ancient Greek civilization. And he kind of held them up.
Go lay down, girl.
As the perfect society.
Yeah.
Well, at the time the Greeks were doing what they were doing, the Germans, the Aryans, were living in mud huts.
Yeah.
Not exactly top of the food chain, I'm just saying.
Well, it was like one of the documentaries I was watching was stating that the irony of it is they were thinking, oh, blonde hair, blue-eyed, you know, we survive. If you buy into the theory that's very prevalent that the migration around the world came from Africa and the Middle East, what it was these weren't pure people in Germany. These were the people that were different. These are the people that the Germans would have themselves executed because they were the ones that, being blonde, being light-skinned, could absorb the vitamin D in these dark climates and survive. So, you know, like the guy was saying, they're actually a bastardization of the original prime race.
Well, yeah, here's another little gem that of irony. When Moses was leading the Jews 40 days, 40 nights, whatever.
Yeah.
Or for 40 years wandering through the wilderness. Okay. At some point, a large section of that migration split off, and they headed north into Europe. So those are the lost tribes.
Yeah.
The lost tribes were Jews.
Yeah.
It's conceivable they were the progenitors of the Aryan race.
Yeah, and I mean, for those of you who are watching us that aren't big historians like Jeff and I are, it's not just stupidity. I mean, it's not just, you know, humor. because the runes were part of the mystical culture. And the most famous rune was the double S's that the SS used, that the SS wore.
Also the swastika.
The swastika, yeah.
It was just a sign. It was a good luck sign.
Yeah, for the out in like the area of Tibet and that, the Hindus.
And the Hindus, the Tibetan people, it cropped up in a bunch of different other places. Mm-hmm. The only thing that Hitler did was he took it from being right side up and canted it 45 degrees.
Yeah.
That's the only change he made.
Yeah. And a lot of this stuff, and this is the one thing, I think we've talked about this in another show. What really bothers me about the Nazis is all of your communist countries, North Korea, China, Cuba, the Soviet Union, were, the guys who started the revolution were intellectuals, but they were all then eventually taken over by, Lenin was replaced by Stalin. Or Castro pretty much was the only one that ruled through his whole life. But they appealed to the proletariat. I'm sorry if I'm looking around, guys, it's because my dog is down here with me. I don't want her to get into trouble. They appealed to the proletariat. They appealed to the people that got the short end of the stick in society.
And the way to appeal to them is to appeal to their baser instincts.
Yes. Now
that's the way it works.
The Nazis didn't appeal to them. The Nazis appealed to the middle class. Yes. And I mean, you're not talking. Yes, you had your essay, The Thugs of the Street. But when you think of it, I mean, Albert Speer was a brilliant man. He was bourgeois. Hess, Hermann Goering, a fighter pilot from World War I, Reinhard Heydrich, who was from the neighborhood. It wasn't a revolution that put them into power. It was the elite that's like, we don't want those damn commies. Put this guy in. The people like him. We can control him. And they used as part of this. They used as part of this propaganda campaign to appeal to the middle class, the occultism, the master race, Wagner, Nietzsche.
Right. Yes. And there is, I'm trying to find it here. There is a great documentary. Where the hell is it? I'm just watching the damn thing. Hang on, bear with me.
That's fine.
Don't panic.
My dog will eat the cat treats if I don't keep an eye on it. That's why.
Yes. I don't blame you.
And then all of a sudden, the cat will sit in front of me and whine for an hour because his treat bowl is empty.
God forbid that should happen.
Cats.
I can't find the damn thing. I don't know why. Hitler's zombie army. That's an actual. Called.
Well, they're like this.
It's called Rise of the Nazis.
Yes, I think it's a 3-part series.
Yes, 3-part series, and it's kind of dramatized, and it tells the story of the power broker who coerced Kaiser Wilhelm, Hindenburg, who coerced Hindenburg into making Hitler Chancellor of Germany.
I remember the story when they were trying to make Hitler Chancellor. Hindenburg had said to someone, I will never make him Chancellor, but I'll make him Postmaster General. That way, whenever he sees a stamp with my picture on it, he can lick my backside.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, exactly.
But Hindenburg was losing it. He was old. He was, and some of the big, powerful bigwigs convinced him, don't worry, put him in. We'll get the Nazis on our side. We'll control them.
Yeah, wrong answer.
Yeah, and that's another thing when I was studying Nazi history that fascinated me. I'd always learned that the Nazis stole power. No, the Nazis were placed into power and then got the Reichstag to pass laws to eradicate themselves and give the Nazis full control.
Yes, they did try to steal power in the beer hall push.
It would be a hall push, and that didn't go well.
It's the same way that Mussolini did in Italy.
Yes.
That was Mussolini was the template.
Yeah.
For that, but it didn't work, and Hitler ended up in jail where he wrote Mein Kampf.
Yes.
And it went from there. He came to the conclusion while he was in jail that the only way to really do this is from the inside.
Right.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
It was a smart political move, and it worked.
Yes. Yeah.
But Otto Rahn is an excellent example of how these smart intellectual people were led down this path to madness.
Yeah.
He was obsessed with Parsifal. He was obsessed with the Knights of the Round Table.
Mm-hmm.
He was obsessed with finding the Holy Grail.
Mm-hmm.
But he had no money, and he got an offer from a friend of his, like the first book he wrote, which was about the Holy Grail, and how he figured that it was there's a mountain castle in southern France called Montségur.
Okay.
Which was taken under siege during a crusade, where the church decided that the Cathars, as a religious sect, were heretics, and they decided to stamp them out.
The church would never do that.
No, and and there is, while they were under siege, this has been historically documented. Certain, like a handful of the people who were in there, escaped down the cliffside of this castle and supposedly made away with the Templar treasure, whatever it was. Some say it was the Holy Grail. Some say it was books, scrolls, whatever. Some say it was gold. Some say it was, who only knows what this stuff was. But his friend, Otto Rahn's friend, liked the book and passed it on to Himmler, who loved it. And Himmler made him a member of his staff.
Yeah.
Well, there's some problems with that. Otto Rahn was rumored to be gay. I don't think it was ever proven.
Yeah.
But back then, that was...
Yeah.
It was a political weapon to say, you're gay, you're homosexual.
Yeah.
That was used as a political weapon. So whether he was or not, the simple accusation would be enough to damage him.
Right.
Second thing was, apparently unbeknownst to Otto Rahn, his mother was born a Jew.
Wow.
And to be a member of the SS, you had to prove Aryan ancestry back like
1750, yeah.
Yeah, 1750 something. Yeah, it was ridiculous. So there was also there were steps you had to take to be considered fully fledged members of the SS.
Right.
One of which was Otto Rahn was sent to one of the Liebestrom, the baby factories.
Yes.
To impregnate
Yes.
German women. Well, apparently he did this. Whether he liked doing it or not, who knows, who cares.
Yeah.
But he also served as a guard, first at Dachau
Uh,
and then at Buchenwald. Dachau, Dachau was the first fully fledged concentration camp. It wasn't a death camp,
no.
but it was a concentration camp.
Yes.
It was in Germany. Um,
Right
and
outside of Munich.
Right outside of Munich. And they used it kind of as a test platform.
Mm-hmm.
And from those tests, they expanded out and you eventually got Auschwitz.
Yes.
I mean, it was bad. They were still beating people and things like that, but it wasn't as bad as it became.
No.
He also got sent to Buchenwald.
Yeah.
Buchenwald was bad.
Yeah.
They were killing people. They were beating them to death. They were doing all sorts of nasty things. And after about 2 weeks there, Otto Rahn said, no, get me out of here. I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because he was a member of Himmler's staff, they couldn't, outright kill him off or do anything like that because it would make Himmler look bad.
Yeah.
So they gave him a choice: go through a trial and be executed, or take the honorable way out and commit suicide. So in 1939, Otto Rahn went up into the Bavarian Alps, sat beneath an ash tree, took some sleeping pills, and froze to death.
Hmm.
They didn't find his body till after the spring thaw.
Wow.
Yeah. So interesting dude. Real interesting.
I know. I got to read more about him, but
yeah, but that is kind of the primrose path down which the German people followed Hitler.
Yeah.
It started out that Hitler was giving them what they wanted, what they needed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a drug dealer giving out free hits of crack.
Yeah.
Now people get addicted to it.
Yeah.
So now they'll do anything you ask them to.
And by the time they realize that, we're in and over our heads, the war had already begun.
Yeah, I mean, at first, they were just arresting people and sending them to the concentration camps.
Yeah.
People that disagreed with them.
Exactly, yeah.
But after a certain point, they just threw away all pretense and started killing people.
Yeah.
It's like, you disagree with us? Bang!
Yeah. Well, once they moved east, once they started with Operation Barbarossa and started taking all those eastern lands, that's when the Einsatzgruppen came in. And that's when they set up all the concentration camps and then eventually the death camps. And they started rounding up Jews all over the place and shipping them out. And
it wasn't just Jews. It was Jews.
No, it wasn't. It was
Jews, it was Gypsies, it was Bolsheviks.
But
in fact, there were like separate sections of these camps for homosexuals.
Yeah.
Those apparently got it worse than the Jews did.
Yeah. Which is ironic when you consider that the SA that got Hitler into power was predominantly run by Ernst Röhm, was a openly proud homosexual.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
the whole Himmler was not by any stretch of the imagination the poster boy for the Aryan race.
None of them.
He wasn't blonde. He wasn't tall.
Yeah.
He was nearsighted. He had stomach problems.
None of them had blonde hair. Himmler, Himmler had the poor eyesight, and Goebbels, who had the club foot and who and I don't mean this to be racial, but I mean he fit some of the caricature stereotypes that the Nazis were using to portray Jewish people. I mean,
Yep.
it's only when you started to get down into the ranks like Reinhard Heydrich, Albert Speer, maybe even Rudolf Hess, that you start get into it. Goering, but Goering got hooked on the morphine, and then
Well, yeah, junkies were not. They were not.
well loved either.
No, and that's ironic
Yeah.
because first Goering and then Hitler
Yeah.
became junkies.
And Catholics, Masons.
Yeah. Well, the Catholics, that's a whole. Hitler, Germany was a predominantly Catholic nation.
Yeah.
So he couldn't openly start killing off priests.
No.
He made a deal with the Pope instead.
Yeah.
And then another guy was made Pope when that one died.
Yeah.
And the guy who was made Pope had actually received the Iron Cross during the First World War.
So.
Yeah. At the end, when everybody was trying to leave, there was an office in the Vatican itself,
right,
that was helping get Nazis out of Germany.
Was that the Rat Line?
It was called the Rat Line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget the name of the priest or the bishop that was doing it.
Yeah.
But
now was that done with or without the Pope's knowledge?
It was in the Vatican. It was there. In Vatican City.
But that doesn't mean the Pope knew what was going on.
I don't know.
I find that a fascinating part of history because, Vatican City was surrounded by Nazis. Mm-hmm. Hitler could have walked in at any time and taken it over in an afternoon.
But because he was an opportunist and because Germany was predominantly Catholic,
you didn't want to do that.
It would have been a bad move.
Right.
Even after he had absolute power, it still would have been a bad move.
Well, sort of a little divergent here. It's the same thing with North Korea. When Kim Il-sung took over in 1945, the Korean peninsula was it was more Christian than Buddhist or anything else. And if you look at the whole story of Kim Jong-il, they were thrown out of their house and they had to travel to a different location and they were on a hill. And he was born in this log cabin, and these two big birds came out, and they shone in the sky when Kim Jong-il was born. Gee, I don't know. Kind of reminds me of something I heard in Sunday school.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, Kim Il-sung used, as Hitler did. They just changed it, whereas Kim Il-sung turned Christianity into Chuche communism. Hitler created his own Catholicism with the SS and the rituals.
Well, yeah, Himmler's ultimate goal was to turn the SS into the state religion. They were the leaders of the SS were going to be the leaders of the new state religion.
Yeah.
Which, on the surface that sounds insane. And it was insane. But if you look at the history of the Catholic Church, the Inquisition, the Crusades, the genocide they committed, the history of the Catholic Church is ugly. Real damn.
And they cleansed their own house. I mean, look at what they did to the Templars.
That was that was because Templars were a bank. They were like the world fucking bank.
Yeah.
And the king of Spain,
France, I thought.
France, maybe. King of France owed them money.
Yeah, owed them tons of
money.
And when they declared the Templars, they were unholy. A lot of countries didn't even go after them. A lot of the kings just said, just don't cause trouble. A lot of rulers turned their backs when the Templars went somewhere else.
Yep.
Now, there's a show we should do someday because there's still
Yes.
a lot of controversy.
Oh.
Most people think it was because of money, but a lot of people think it's because they found something on the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem that, if released, would have completely undermined and destroyed Catholicism.
I wonder if that would make a good novel. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
It's going to.
My first wife bought me that book because she had read it and thought it was great. And I'm reading it and she's like, what do you think? And I says, oh, well, this is the whole theory about, Jesus having a wife. And she goes, how do you know that? It's like, I've studied the Templar history.
Yep.
Though
I read Holy Blood, Holy Grail.
Yes.
Which is this nonfiction book.
Right.
From which Dan Brown
based his,
yes. I read that before Dan Brown's book came out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, but it doesn't really prove anything.
It doesn't prove anything, but the one thing that sticks in my mind is they built a church in England in 1066 that had maize sculpted onto the side 400 years before Columbus discovered America. Mm-hmm. So you never know.
You never know.
I mean, and let's face it, you've done it, I've done it. Sometimes the best novels have that little kernel of historical truth in them.
Yep, sometimes I do. Go ahead. You want to keep going, or you want to?
No, we can wrap it up in the next 5 minutes or so.
Good,
we could go for hours on this topic.
I know, but I have to pee like a racehorse. So.
Oh, all right, we'll wrap it up.
All right. Nobody posted any comments, so I don't know if they had an audience or not. But this is great. We definitely will touch on the subject again.
Oh yeah. I mean, I find the history of World War II, the Russian front, the war against Japan, Unit 731, the whole bullshit behind the Emperor of Japan being this nice little old guy who was pushed around.
I'll be back in a second.
Okay. The whole concept of this farce that, Emperor Hirohito was a sweet old guy that was pushed around by the military. The warfare itself, the development of the weapons. I know Jeff and I talk about this all the time. We find this fascinating. It is one of the most significant periods in history because it shaped everything right up until today. So, but while Jeff's away, I'll say I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. If you got any questions, reach out to us and contact us. There's so much history, pseudo-history, theory, complete bullshit propaganda related to this. I got hooked for a couple of years on Nazi occultism. I've read so many books, read so many novels, seen so many documentaries on it. This could keep you entertained for hours and hours upon end. Does anybody have any comments before we go? Can anybody get on the comment section? If not, if you can't reach us when this is posted, just go into the comment sections on Facebook and ask the questions. I'll be posting this to my timeline in the next day or so. It's already on Asylum of Fear, so just ask the questions there, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Much better.
Yes. No, I was just
being old.
Trust me, I know. I was just saying that if for some reason they can't post because the comments aren't working, just, ask the questions on the Asylum of Fear or when I post this to my page.
Yep.
Yeah. We always go over this stuff and answer the questions.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. So next time, yeah, you wanna revisit this next time? Or you wanna
now let's come
do
back
something
to
else?
this. Let's
All
come back
right.
to this later. We'll figure out something good for that. God knows there's enough. Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
You know, I mean, there's so much crap in movies
Mm-hmm.
that that the historical version of it would have been so much better. But
Yeah, yeah, I
maybe
know.
someday we'll talk about Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor. We can do King Arthur.
Oh, there's enough.
We can do King Arthur. I mean, that's technically it's a fiction, but
Yeah.
it's so intricately tied to Western European history that
Yes.
that's legit.
And
That's legit.
there is a possible figure that King Arthur was based on. Now, it
Mhm.
wasn't the whole Camelot, Sir Lancelot, and everybody singing show tunes, but there
Mhm.
was a historical figure that a lot of people think became the basis for the Camelot and King Arthur legend. You want to do that next time?
Okay, sure.
All right,
Yeah,
King
let's do
Arthur
that.
and Camelot.
King Arthur it shall be.
All right, sounds good. Jeff,
So, yep. Thanks,
thank you for
Scott. It was
having me.
great. It was awesome.
I love doing
And
these shows.
we'll see you guys next time. 2 weeks.
All right.
Take it
Ciao.
easy.